So this is going to be the vegetarian option that we offered as one of the other boxes. So it's simply utilizing tofu. So I know a lot of people, when they've had fried tofu, they're going to have it. A lot of people don't know that when you actually freeze tofu, it changes its texture. And once it actually becomes fried, it becomes kind of like a chicken texture. So you can definitely still fry like normal tofu, but by freezing it, you're giving it an entirely different texture that actually gives it more of that like full protein kind of flavor and texture. So this is the one that I had frozen once. And so as you can see, like normal tofu, you cannot like squeeze it like this and it still stays together. So I'm squeezing out some of the liquid, and what happens is when you freeze it, it forces the soy water to come out of the physical product. So, and then you end up having like this almost chicken looking texture that's as a result of the freezing. So this is kind of a technique that I had a classmate show me. They made a mochiko chicken out of like tofu, and it blew my mind because I was like, it tasted almost exactly like chicken. Like if they didn't tell me, I probably would have thought it was chicken, especially because of like it absorbs a lot of flavor too. So when they made their chicken, like they can marinate this and it absorbs a lot of the flavor as well. And then you can fry it just like as if it was chicken. So what we're gonna do is here is I'm just breaking it apart. And you can see you can break it up into any kind of sizes that you want. I'm simply just breaking up into some larger ones. If you want, you could even do like popcorn chicken and you just make like tiny clumps like this. And then that can also be fried up as well. So I'm just simply breaking them apart into more bite-sized pieces. But this is like its texture once it's frozen. So it's completely different. And I like to use firm simply because it has a stronger texture. I don't think you can actually do this with like super soft tofu. It's something that only happens when you have firm tofu. And it's a really unique. So I was like, I might as well, kind of apply it to this because I think it's a really good alternative, especially for people that are on plant-based nutrition. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna make the batter. It's pretty much the exact same batter as the chicken. I just switched out the protein. So what we're gonna do here is I have the ulu flour, which is half a cup. I'm just gonna put it inside of a bowl. And then I also have my cornstarch. And I like to combine these two together because it pretty much makes like a really crispy batter. Because ulu flour has high absorbency, it would absorb a lot of the oil. So adding in some cornstarch kind of helps to give it a better chance of it becoming crispy. So, like in Japanese cuisine, right, when they use cornstarch or rice flour, like when they do karaage, right, that's why it has that like super iconic, like super crispy texture. And so that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm just helping the ulu flour have a more crispy texture once it's fried. And then in this small container here, I simply have black pepper, paprika, salt, and some of the baking powder. I'm just going to add that in. And then I have a fork just to kind of incorporate some of the dry ingredients first. At the same time, I already have my oil on. So I'm going to check it. You can take one of the things that I've learned, if you don't have a thermometer at home, you can actually stick a chopstick in. And if the chopstick starts to bubble along the top, I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's bubbling along the top. So it's around like 350 right now. So what I like to do is I like to turn the heat down slightly. So right now I have the dry ingredients incorporated. And so what I'm gonna do is I have my water. I'm gonna make this batter. So just like in the video, I don't add all the water in at one time. What happens is when you add your liquid for batters all at one time, what happens is you end up with this super clumpy batter. So what you do is you slowly thicken, and you're gonna start to create kind of like a paste inside of the bowl. And that's what you want, just kind of start it off, because then now you're starting to dissolve some of the flour inside the water. So you have that now. I'm gonna add another. We're just gonna keep mixing. And actually, one of the things that I noticed too is because like this is something that can be also eaten raw, we're not worrying about internal temperature as much as the chicken, right? So this one can be cooked at 350. And I actually like to do a slightly thinner batter than I did for the chicken, because I kind of want like these pieces to kind of have that like crispy look that's of like fried chicken. So we're gonna keep going. You can see there's still like some clumps, so I'm just breaking them apart. I want it to be a little thinner than this, so I'm gonna add a little bit more. So it's kind of like a semi-watery batter, and that's totally fine because we're like, just like the chicken, we are going to dredge the tofu first. So I have here some of the whole ulu flour. I'm just gonna put it in its own separate bowl first. Okay. Check the oil one more time. Okay, so down a little bit. One of the key things when you're gonna fry anything is the temperature of the oil. Too hot and your food burns, too cold and then your food becomes like this super, super soggy, oily, product. So having that perfect temperature is really key. Like I said, I like to do the chopstick method. Another one that also works is some people will take some of the flour and they'll sprinkle it on and it'll like foam on top of the oil. So you know that the temperature is hot enough to be able to fry something. Ready. So just gonna do a sample one. So you want to evenly coat it inside of its first dredging mixture so that most of the tofu is all covered inside of the flour. And then we're gonna go right in. And one of the things too is that you don't want a lot of batter. So what you're gonna do is you're just gonna drip some of it along the edge. Okay. And then I'm gonna turn the heat pretty much low, almost off. And I'm just going to drop it right in. And one of the things about this batter I noticed too is that don't just drop it right in because it can stick to the bottom of the frying pot. So you want to kind of like move it around inside of the pot first, just so that part of it fries, and then when you drop it, it doesn't stick to the bottom. So I'm just going to keep going, do a couple more. Like I said, you just want to drip off the edges. Gonna go around. Wrong order. One of the key things when it comes to frying is you want to have your entire station set up before you start frying. You don't want to be like scrambling to grab things because it's a pretty messy process, right? So you're gonna have like your hands is gonna have the batter and all that, and especially if you're gonna be working with chicken, you don't want to have to leave the station because raw chicken contains salmonella. So you don't want to be running around touching things, and then now you have salmonella in your cupboard and in your sink and all that. So it's better to just have, when you're ready to fry and have everything ready at the same time. So I have my bowl where the fried product is going to go in, and I have paper towels lined just so that the oil can drip off and you don't have a super, super oily product. So I'm going to turn the heat back on slightly. Let's go. And they're starting to fry. Sometimes the tofu will float, so you want to flip it over. So you notice how this side is brown, but then this side's still kind of pale. So I just flipped it over. And then on the side here, I just have a little bit of salt. And that's just to season it, right? When you always want to season your fried food right when it comes out of the fryer, because the salt will dissolve on top of the hot product. If you try to season it after it's already cold, you'll just have large pieces of salt. And so it'll just be like a little salt bomb. So this is the first piece that I put in. And these are pretty much frying for about maybe like 2 to 3 minutes. It's obviously going to be a lot shorter than the chicken is because, like I said, the internal temperature, it doesn't really have one since tofu can be eaten raw. So this is more, you're going until the batter is that nice golden brown. So this can go a little bit longer. This one is done. I'm just gonna place, you just place it onto the paper towel. You take a little bit of salt right on top. And one of the cool things about ulu flour is that it has a high absorbency, but when paired with a couple other flours, like for this instant cornstarch, it actually creates a really crispy batter that can hold for at least maybe like 5 minutes, especially if you keep it in a warm area. But surprisingly, it does hold its crispiness, which is, I think, pretty cool. And it's ready as well. I'm gonna say salt again. And that's pretty much like what you're doing for the vegan one. It's, you know, same batter, like I said, as the chicken, but now we're just doing it with tofu. And so one of the things is like, they're pretty crispy, but the inside is not like it's overcooked. So what I can do is I can actually cut one open for you. Use my hands, braided. And it has kind of like a chicken appearance, which I think is really cool. And that's why I kind of like this recipe, because you can give it to, you know, people that are already vegan or vegetarian, and it's something that they like, but you can also give it to, say, your kids. You know, it's a new way to use tofu, and it's also a healthier alternative. I mean, obviously I fried it. So in general, frying is not exactly healthy, but you can always bake. But like, this is a really good idea for a plant-based option if you want something that has a very similar texture to, you know, chicken or even other proteins. Like if you marinate it, you marinate this kind of tofu after it's been frozen, it can absorb a lot of flavor and give you like that meat-like texture. But other than that, that is the super simple, quick demonstration for the fried tofu.